So in this section, we are just going to see about Kubernetes. I just took a little deviation and don't want to jump into the hands-on as a first step because there are so many moving pieces when you try to do it in Kubernetes. The first part was running locally, the second part was running with Docker, and the third part was running with Kubernetes. And Kubernetes, look at it this way: it's a container orchestrator. So to be able to explain it, I am going to use an analogy. Say like you have an electrical amplifier and you apply a 1 volt sine wave into it, like how it sees a 1 volt sine wave. And if you apply it and you put a 5 volt battery here, it's going to amplify it 5 times. So the peak is going to be 5 volt and the trip is going to be minus 5 volt, and it's going to amplify it. If you apply a sawtooth wave or a triangular wave, it's going to give the same output. So now you are manipulating the input in two ways. One is the input itself is taken into the amplifier, and the battery power is taken into the amplifier, and it amplifies it proportionately. If you apply a 10 volt battery here, then it would be plus 10 volt to minus 10 volt. So now that's the first part. Now, so what how does it compare to Kubernetes as an analogy, right? So you give some input YAML files which forms the input to Kubernetes. It tells Kubernetes how many containers it has to provision. So now, how about where to provision it? It comes from the cloud providers like AWS, DigitalOcean, uh, Google GCP, Google Cloud Project. So Kubernetes, it takes reach the input, and its behavior is configured by the cloud provider plugins, and it creates pods in the corresponding cloud provider. So okay, so that's how to look at Kubernetes as a system. So you have the VM in the cloud which has nodes. A node is nothing but a collection of resources, which we'll see below, and a node has one or more pods, and a pod is a logical host. A pod has one or more containers. It would be one container if it is not a tightly coupled containers, and kubelet is part of the Kubernetes architecture. Okay, so that again we are going to see it later. So just look at it as it takes YAML files as the input, and it provides the cloud provider plugins as the battery, and it provides provisions VMs in the cloud, which in turn has nodes, which in turn has pods, and the pods in turn have containers. So that's how you look at Kubernetes.